The trauma bay doors exploded open at 3:47 a.m., and the screaming started immediately. GSW to the chest, pressure's dropping, he's coding. Blood sprayed across the white tiles. The patient convulsed on the gurney, his chest a shredded mess of torn fabric and raw meat. Dr. Ethan Cole stumbled backward, his hands shaking as alarm shrieked from every monitor. 2 residents froze. A nurse dropped her IV tray, the clatter lost in the chaos. Then a voice cut through it all, calm, cold, absolute. "Stop talking. Clamp the subclavian. Now." Everyone turned. Standing in the corner, half hidden behind a supply cart, was the new nurse, Maya Torres, the quiet one, the one nobody bothered learning the name of. She stepped forward, and her eyes weren't asking permission. "Move," she said again, softer this time, but with the weight of something older than this hospital, darker than this night. Ethan opened his mouth to tell her to back off, but then he saw her hands, steady, practiced, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Who the hell was she? Before we dive in, stick with me until the very end of this story. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from so I can see how far this has traveled. Hit that like button if you're ready for the truth. Maya Torres had been at Black Ridge Medical Center for exactly 11 days, and nobody had bothered to remember her face. She clocked in at 6 a.m., worked the floors without complaint, ate lunch alone in the back stairwell, and left before anyone noticed. The other nurses called her the transfer, or the new girl, or sometimes just her. Dr. Ethan Cole had seen her twice, once during orientation, where he'd nodded without looking up from his phone, and once in the hallway when she'd stepped aside to let him pass. He didn't say thank you. Denver's winter had come early that year, brutal and unforgiving. Black Ridge sat on the city's east edge, a sprawling Level 1 trauma center that handled everything the mountains, highways, and bad decisions could throw at it. The ER ran on adrenaline and arrogance in equal measure. Ethan had been there for 7 years, long enough to know which residents would crack and which attending physicians were coasting on reputation alone. He was good at his job. Everyone said so. The board loved him. Patients survived. His name appeared in local health magazines under headlines like Denver's top trauma surgeon. He wore tailored scrubs and expensive running shoes and drank single-origin coffee from a French press he kept in his office. Maya Torres wore knockoff sneakers and kept her head down. That first night, the GSW case had been an anomaly. That's what Ethan told himself. The guy had lived, barely, and the post-op report credited the surgical team. Maya's name wasn't mentioned. She'd gone back to her rounds like nothing happened, and Ethan had convinced himself he'd imagined the authority in her voice. 2 weeks later, a second case arrived. It was a Saturday mid-shift when the call came through dispatch. Multi-vehicle collision on I-70 westbound. 6 cars. Unknown number of casualties. EMS inbound hot with 4 criticals. The ER erupted. Clear trauma 1 and 2. Get the blood bank on standby. Someone page ortho and neuro. Nurses sprinted past each other. Residents shouted conflicting orders. Dr. Helen Voss, the ER attending on duty, stood in the center of the chaos barking instructions that nobody seemed to hear. Ethan jogged in from the surgical wing, still pulling on gloves. "How many incoming?" he snapped. 4 confirmed critical, Helen said, her face pale. "Maybe more." "Maybe?" "Scene's still active. They're pulling people out now." The first ambulance screamed into the bay, and the doors flew open. A woman in her 30s, unconscious, face caved in from the steering wheel. Ethan moved without thinking, his hands finding the airway, his mind running through the steps. Intubate. Stabilize. Scan. Surgery if needed. But behind him, the second gurney rolled in, and the third, and the fourth, and suddenly the room wasn't big enough. Voices overlapped. Someone was crying, a monitor flatlined, and nobody moved toward it. "Who's got bed 3?" Helen screamed. Silence. Ethan looked up, blood slick on his gloves, and saw a kid, maybe 19, seizing on the gurney, foam bubbling from his mouth. The resident assigned to him stood frozen, staring, his mouth open. "Do something!" Ethan roared. The kid didn't move. Then Maya stepped in. She didn't run. She didn't shout. She just appeared beside the seizing patient, her hands already moving, tilting his head, clearing his airway, fingers checking his pulse. "Midazolam, 2 milligrams," she said, her voice flat. Not to anyone in particular, just to the air. A nurse materialized, syringe ready. Maya took it without looking, pushed the plunger, waited 3 seconds. The seizing stopped. She glanced at the monitor. Pressure's dropping. He's bleeding internally. Somebody scan him. The resident blinked. I was going to... Then do it. Her tone wasn't cruel. It wasn't even impatient. It was the sound of someone who'd already moved past the panic and landed somewhere colder, sharper, where hesitation didn't exist. Ethan stared. She turned, scanned the room, pointed at another gurney. That one's got a pneumothorax, left side. Needle decompression before he arrests. Helen spun. How do you... His neck veins are distended and his trachea is shifted. Move. And they did. For the next 40 minutes, the ER ran like a machine. Brutal, efficient, bloody. Patients stabilized. Surgeries were prepped. The chaos didn't disappear, but it stopped drowning them. And at the center of it, quiet and unnoticed by everyone except Ethan, was Maya Torres. She didn't give orders like a nurse. She gave them like a commander. When the last ambulance finally cleared and the trauma bays fell silent except for the hum of ventilators, Ethan found her in the hallway. She was washing her hands at a sink, her scrub soaked through with someone else's blood. "Where did you learn that?" he asked. She didn't look up. "Learn what?" "That. The triage, the calls. You weren't guessing." "No." "So where?" She dried her hands slowly, deliberately, then met his eyes for the first time. Hers were dark, unreadable, and older than her face suggested. "Does it matter?" she said. "Yeah, it does." She almost smiled. Almost. "Then ask someone who cares." She walked past him, and he let her go, too stunned to argue. The next day, Ethan pulled her file. It was thin. Thinner than it should have been. Previous employment listed as contract nursing, various facilities. Education, nursing degree from a state school in Arizona. Certifications, standard. References, 2 names he didn't recognize. Nothing. He called HR. "Maya Torres," he said. "New hire. I need her full background." The woman on the other end hesitated. "Is there a problem, Dr. Cole?" "No, just doing my due diligence." "Her file's complete. Everything's in order." "It's not complete. There's nothing here." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dr. Cole, I'm not authorized to discuss personnel details beyond what's in the system." "Then who is?" "Administration, but I wouldn't recommend..." He hung up. Something was off. People didn't move like Maya moved without a history. You didn't develop that kind of instinct in a classroom. You didn't learn to prioritize a collapsing lung over a broken arm by reading textbooks. She'd been trained somewhere else, somewhere harder. He just didn't know where. 3 days later, the hospital's senior staff held their weekly meeting in the executive conference room. Ethan attended out of obligation, half listening to budget reports and patient satisfaction scores. Dr. Richard Landry, the chief of surgery, droned on about quarterly performance metrics. Then Helen Voss spoke up. "I want to talk about the multi-car response last Saturday." Landry frowned. "What about it?" "We almost lost control. If it hadn't been for..." She hesitated, glancing at her notes. "One of the newer nurses, Torres. She kept things moving." Landry waved a hand. "Nurses don't run trauma responses, Helen. You do." "I know, but she was calling critical assessments faster than some of our residents." "Then maybe your residents need better training." Laughter rippled around the table. Ethan didn't join in. "I'm serious," Helen said, her voice tightening. "I think we should look into her background. She's got experience we're not utilizing." Landry leaned back, his expression cooling. "Her background's been vetted. She's a nurse. That's her role. Let's not overcomplicate things." "But, Helen..." His tone sharpened. "Drop it." She did. Ethan watched Landry's face. Watched the way his jaw set, the way his eyes flicked to the hospital administrator, Margaret Chen, who sat at the far end of the table and said nothing. They knew something, and they didn't want it discussed. Gee. Maya kept working, kept her head down, kept silent. But people were starting to notice. A respiratory therapist mentioned her to a friend in radiology. A resident admitted she'd saved his ass during a code. Helen Voss quietly reassigned her to the trauma wing, where her skills wouldn't be wasted on med-surg floors. Ethan started watching her. Not obviously, just paying attention. He noticed the way she moved through a room, always positioning herself near the door, always aware of exits. The way she never wore earbuds, even on break. The way her eyes tracked movement, nurses, visitors, gurneys, like she was calculating threat levels. One night he caught her in the break room, standing by the window, staring out at the Denver skyline. "You don't talk much," he said. She didn't turn. "No." "Why not?" "Nothing to say." He stepped closer. "You're good at this. Better than good. People are starting to notice." "I know." "Does that bother you?" She finally looked at him. "Should it?" "I don't know. You tell me." For a moment he thought she might drop the armor and let him see whatever she was hiding. But then her face closed again, smooth and unreadable. "I'm just a nurse, Dr. Cole," she said quietly. "That's all." "Bullshit." Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Believe what you want." She left, and Ethan stood there, frustrated and fascinated in equal measure. The breaking point came on a Thursday. It started with a domestic violence call. Woman in her 20s, beaten so badly her own mother didn't recognize her. She came in seizing, hypovolemic, barely alive. The ER scrambled. Ethan scrubbed in for emergency surgery. Helen coordinated the trauma team, and Maya stood in the corner, watching. "Torres," Helen barked, "I need vitals." Maya didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the patient's face. "Torres!" She blinked, came back, nodded. "Move to the monitors." But Ethan saw it. The flicker of something raw and unguarded in her expression. Something that looked like recognition. The surgery took 4 hours. The woman lived, barely. Afterward, Ethan found Maya outside the surgical wing, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall, her head tipped back, her eyes closed. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine." "You don't look fine." She opened her eyes. "I said I'm fine." He sat down beside her. Not close, just there. "You knew her," he said. "No." "You looked at her like you did." Maya's jaw tightened. "I've seen a lot of faces, Dr. Cole. They start to blur together." "Not like that. That wasn't blur. That was something else." She stood abruptly, brushing off her scrubs. "I need to get back. Maya, don't." Her voice cracked, just for a second, and then she was gone. Ethan sat there alone, staring at the empty hallway, and realized he'd just heard her say his name for the first time. 2 nights later, Denver PD brought in a gunshot victim. Gang-related. The kid was 17 wearing colors, bleeding out from a femoral artery wound. The ER went to work. Ethan clamped the artery. Helen coordinated fluids, residents swarmed, and Maya stood at the foot of the bed, staring at the kid's face. "Torres," Ethan said sharply. "I need pressure here." She didn't move. "Torres!" She snapped to attention, grabbed the clamp, held pressure, but her hands were shaking, just barely, just enough for Ethan to notice. The kid survived. Afterward, Ethan cornered her in the supply room. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "You froze. Twice now. That's not you." "You don't know me." "No, I don't, but I'm starting to think I should." She turned on him, and for the first time he saw anger in her eyes. Real, unfiltered anger. "You want to know me?" she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You want the story? Fine. I've seen kids like that bleed out in dirt roads while mortars landed 50 feet away. I've held pressure on wounds you couldn't imagine while bullets punched through the tent walls. I've made calls that killed people because saving one meant losing 3. So forgive me if a 17-year-old gangbanger reminds me of a 17-year-old soldier I couldn't save in Kandahar." The room went silent. Ethan stared at her. "You were deployed," he said quietly. She looked away. "I was a lot of things." "What unit? Does it matter?" "Yeah, it does." She laughed bitterly. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me." She met his eyes, and for the first time he saw the truth in them. The weight, the exhaustion, the things she'd been carrying alone. "I was a combat medic," she said, "embedded with a special operations task force. Classified rotations. 3 tours. 4 years. I pulled soldiers out of burning vehicles. I triaged mass casualty events and active firefights. I kept men alive long enough to say goodbye to their families over satellite phones. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't break. It just existed. Flat and factual and devastatingly real. I didn't come here to talk about it, she continued. I came here to leave it behind. But it doesn't stay behind, Dr. Cole. It follows you. Every case, every patient, every time someone's dying and you have to choose who gets saved first. But Ethan couldn't breathe. So yeah, she finished, I froze because I'm tired and I'm done pretending I'm not. She walked out. And Ethan stood there, alone in the supply room, realizing he'd just met someone who'd survived a war he couldn't begin to understand. The next morning, Richard Landry called him into his office. I heard you've been asking questions about Torres, Landry said, not looking up from his computer. I have. Stop. Ethan blinked. Excuse me? Stop asking questions. Her file's been cleared. Her credentials are valid. That's all you need to know. She's former military, special operations. That's not in her file. Landry's eyes flicked up, cold and sharp. And it's not going in her file. Drop it, Ethan. Why? Because I'm telling you to. That's not an answer. Landry stood, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Listen to me very carefully. Maya Torres is here because we allowed her to be here. Her background is complicated. Her clearances are complicated. And if you keep digging, you're going to complicate things for everyone, including her. So unless you want to jeopardize her employment and your own reputation, you'll leave it alone. Ethan stared at him. What are you hiding? I'm protecting this hospital. That's my job. Now do yours. The meeting ended. Ethan walked out, his mind racing. They were hiding her, deliberately, erasing her past to make her fit into their system. And she'd let them, because she'd wanted to disappear. But why? That night, the call came in at 11:53 p.m. Mass shooting, downtown Denver, nightclub, 20-plus victims, EMS inbound. The ER exploded into motion. Ethan ran. Helen screamed orders. Nurses flooded the trauma bays, and Maya Torres stood in the center of it all, her face blank, her eyes scanning the room like a radar system locking onto targets. The first wave hit. Gunshot wounds, everywhere, chests, abdomens, heads, some already dead, some screaming, some silent and pale in seconds from shock. Ethan grabbed the nearest gurney, a young woman with a through and through in her shoulder. Stable, painful, but survivable. He started to call for a nurse. Leave her. He turned. Maya was standing beside him, her voice cutting through the chaos. What? She's stable. Move to the next one. I need to. She'll live. That one won't. Maya pointed at a man 2 beds over, gasping, his lips blue. Tension pneumothorax. Decompress him now or he arrests in 90 seconds. Ethan hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to finish what he'd started. But Maya's eyes didn't waver. He moved. Needle decompression. Air hissed out. The man's color returned. Ethan exhaled. Next, Maya said, already walking. And for the next 2 hours, Ethan followed her. She didn't touch patients. She didn't give meds. She just moved through the chaos like a ghost, pointing, directing, prioritizing. Her voice never rose. Her hands never shook. She saw things before they happened. The patient about to code, the IV about to infiltrate, the resident about to crack. Helen noticed. The other doctors noticed. Even the paramedics, hardened and cynical, started looking to her for confirmation. Where do you want this one? A medic asked, wheeling in a teenager with a gut shot. Helen opened her mouth to answer, but Maya spoke first. Trauma 2. He's got maybe 10 minutes before he bleeds out. Prep for X-lap. The medic didn't question it, just moved. Helen stared at Maya. Who the hell put you in charge? Maya met her eyes. Nobody. But if you want them to live, you'll listen. Helen should have been furious, should have thrown her out, should have reminded her that nurses don't run trauma bays. Instead, she stepped aside, because Maya was right. By 3 a.m., the wave had passed. 16 patients admitted, 4 in surgery, 3 dead on arrival. It could have been worse. Should have been worse. Ethan found Maya in the back hallway, sitting on a bench, her head in her hands. "You saved them," he said. She didn't look up. "Some of them. More than we would have without you." "Maybe." He sat down beside her. "You weren't a medic, were you?" She finally lifted her head. Her eyes were red but dry. "I was," she said. "But I also led triage operations in forward surgical teams. Mass casualty incidents under fire. 100+ casualties. Limited resources. No backup. You learn to choose fast. You learn to live with the choices." "Jesus." "No," she said quietly. "Just war." They sat in silence. Then Ethan said the thing he'd been holding back for weeks. "Why are you here, Maya? Why Blackridge? Why nursing? You could be running trauma programs, teaching. You could—" "I don't want to run anything," she interrupted. "I just want to work, quietly, anonymously. I want to help people without the weight of rank and responsibility and all the fucking eyes watching to see if I'll break." Her voice cracked. "I'm tired, Ethan. I'm so goddamn tired, and I just want to do my job and go home and not think about the ones I couldn't save." He didn't know what to say, so he just sat with her. And outside in the trauma bay, alarms began to sound again, because the night wasn't over. It never was. The alarms weren't coming from the trauma bay. They were coming from the parking garage. Ethan's head snapped up. Maya was already on her feet, moving toward the sound before he could process what was happening. He followed, his exhaustion forgotten, adrenaline kicking back in like a switch had flipped. They hit the stairwell doors at a run. Down one flight, then another. The concrete echoed with their footsteps and something else, shouting. A woman's voice, high and panicked. "Help! Somebody help!" They burst through the ground-level exit into the garage. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Near the employee section, a small crowd had gathered around a car. A silver sedan, driver's door open, engine still running. Maya pushed through without asking permission. Ethan followed. Inside the car, slumped over the wheel, was Dr. Richard Landry. His face was gray. His lips were blue. His right hand clutched at his chest, fingers curled like claws. He collapsed. I saw him fall." The woman speaking was a phlebotomist Ethan recognized but couldn't name. Her hands were shaking. Maya didn't hesitate. She reached in, checked his pulse, tilted his head back. "Call a code. Get a crash cart down here now." Someone ran. Ethan moved to help, but Maya was faster, already dragging Landry out of the car and onto the cold concrete. His body was dead weight, unresponsive. "Start compressions," Maya said, her voice flat. Ethan dropped to his knees, laced his fingers, and began. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm felt mechanical, distant, like he was watching himself from somewhere else. Maya was checking Landry's airway, her fingers moving with the same precision she'd shown all night. No panic, no hesitation, just execution. The crash cart arrived. Nurses swarmed. Helen Voss appeared from somewhere, her face pale. "What happened?" "Am I?" Maya said, already prepping the defibrillator. "Massive from the look of it." Helen stared at Landry's face. "Jesus Christ! Everybody clear!" Maya's voice cut through the chaos. She placed the paddles. Ethan pulled back. The shock made Landry's body arch off the ground. Nothing. Again. Another shock. Another horrible convulsion. Still nothing. Ethan started compressions again, his arms burning. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. "Come on, you bastard," Helen muttered under her breath. Maya checked the monitor. Her expression didn't change, but Ethan saw something flicker in her eyes. Something that looked like resignation. "How long?" Helen asked. 6 minutes? Maybe 7. "Keep going." They did. Compressions, breaths, shocks. The full protocol, executed perfectly, desperately. But Landry's heart didn't restart. At the 9-minute mark, Maya stepped back. "Call it." Helen looked at her. "What?" "Call it. He's gone." "We don't stop at 9 minutes. His pupils are fixed. He's been down too long. You're just breaking ribs now." Helen's face twisted. You don't get to make that call. Maya met her eyes. Then you make it. For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sound was the hum of the defibrillator, waiting for another command that wouldn't come. Finally, Helen exhaled. Time of death, 4:17 a.m. Ethan sat back on his heels, his hands still sticky with sweat. Around him, the crowd began to disperse. Nurses murmured. Someone covered Landry's body with a sheet. Maya stood, wiped her hands on her scrubs, and walked away without a word. Ethan watched her go, his chest tight. Landry was dead. The man who'd silenced questions about Maya, the man who'd told Ethan to stop digging. And now he'd never get answers. The hospital moved like a machine in the aftermath. Bodies were removed. Paperwork was filed. Shift changes happened. Landry's death was processed the way all deaths were processed. Clinical, efficient, emotionless. But in the quiet spaces, people talked. Did you hear? Landry dropped dead in the parking garage. Massive heart attack. Never saw it coming. Who's taking over as chief of surgery? Ethan moved through the conversations like a ghost. He went to his office, closed the door, and sat in the dark, staring at nothing. Landry had been an asshole. Everyone knew it. He played favorites, buried complaints, protected his own reputation above all else. But he'd also been competent. He'd kept the surgical department running. He'd kept the hospital's metrics high. And he'd been hiding something about Maya. Ethan pulled out his phone, opened his email, and scrolled back through the last few weeks. There, buried in a chain from administration, was a memo from Landry. Subject line, Personnel Confidentiality Reminder. He opened it. All department heads are reminded that employee backgrounds are protected under hospital policy. Inquiries into prior employment, military service, or personal history must be routed through HR and approved by administration. Unauthorized disclosure may result in disciplinary action. It was dated 3 days after Ethan had first asked about Maya's file. He read it again, then a third time. Landry hadn't just been protecting the hospital, he'd been protecting Maya, or controlling the narrative around her, or both. But why? A knock at the door made him jump. Come in. Helen Voss stepped inside, looking older than she had that morning. She sat down across from him without asking, her shoulders slumped. Hell of a night, she said. Yeah. They sat in silence for a moment. I need to ask you something, Helen said finally. About Torres. Ethan's stomach tightened. What about her? She's not just a nurse, is she? No? Helen nodded slowly. I figured. The way she moves, the way she thinks. I've worked with combat medics before. She's not like them. She's something else. She was special operations, embedded with a classified task force. Helen's eyes widened. How do you know? She told me. Tonight. Jesus. Helen rubbed her face. Does administration know? Landry knew. He shut me down when I tried to find out more. And now he's dead. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Helen said slowly, that we've got a former special operations medic working in our ER, and the one person who knew her full story just died. And I'm thinking that's either a coincidence or it's not. You think someone wanted Landry dead? No. I think Landry had a heart attack because he was 63 and lived on scotch and stress. But I also think his death just opened a door that was supposed to stay closed. Ethan's mind raced. What do you mean? I mean the interim chief of surgery is going to be announced tomorrow, and whoever gets that position is going to have access to personnel files Landry kept locked down, including hers. Who's being considered? Helen smiled bitterly. Take a guess. Ethan's blood went cold. No. Dr. Marcus Brennan, head of cardiothoracic, Landry's protege. Brennan's a shark. Brennan's a politician, and he hates anything that makes waves. If he finds out we've got someone with Maya's background working here, he'll either exploit it or bury her. We can't let that happen. We might not have a choice. Ethan stood, paced to the window. Outside, dawn was breaking over Denver, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The city looked peaceful, clean, like the night's horrors had never happened. There has to be something we can do, he said. Like what? Storm into HR and demand they protect her? They'll cite privacy laws and kick us out. Go to the board. They don't care about one nurse. Not when Brennan's got them convinced he's the future of this hospital. Then we go to her, warn her, and tell her what? That she's about to be investigated by a man who destroys careers for sport? You think she doesn't already know? Ethan turned. So we just let him win? Helen stood, walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. I've been doing this for 23 years, Ethan. I've seen good people get chewed up by the system more times than I can count. And you know what I've learned? The system always wins. Always. The only question is how much damage it does on the way. She left. Ethan stood alone in his office, watching the sunrise, feeling something inside him harden into resolve. The system didn't have to win. Not this time. Dr. Marcus Brennan was 52, silver-haired, and sharp in the way expensive knives were sharp, polished, precise, and designed to cut. He'd been at Blackridge for 12 years, climbing the ladder with the kind of ruthless competence that made administrators love him and staff fear him. He didn't waste time. By noon the next day, he'd been named interim chief of surgery. By 2 p.m., he'd called a department meeting. Ethan sat in the back row, watching Brennan work the room. He spoke in smooth, confident tones about maintaining standards and upholding Blackridge's reputation and ensuring continuity during this difficult transition. It was a performance, a good one, but Ethan saw the calculation behind it. Brennan wasn't mourning Landry. He was consolidating power. The other doctors nodded along, murmuring agreement. A few asked questions about scheduling, budget allocations, research opportunities. Brennan answered each one with practiced ease, his smile never wavering. Then he dropped the bomb. I'll also be conducting a comprehensive review of all departmental personnel, Brennan said, his tone casual. We need to ensure that everyone working under the surgical umbrella meets Blackridge's standards. That includes nursing staff, residents, fellows, and support personnel. A few people shifted in their seats. Ethan's jaw tightened. This isn't a witch hunt, Brennan continued. It's simply due diligence. We owe it to our patients to verify that every member of our team is qualified, credentialed, and operating within their scope of practice. He paused, let the words settle. If anyone has concerns about specific personnel, my door is always open. The meeting ended. People filed out, chatting about lunch plans and upcoming surgeries. Brennan caught Ethan in the hallway. Dr. Cole, a moment. Ethan stopped. What do you need? Brennan smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. I've been reviewing department performance metrics. Your trauma outcomes are exceptional. I wanted to commend you. Thanks. I also noticed you've been working closely with one of our newer nurses, Maya Torres. Ethan's pulse spiked. She's good at her job. I'm sure she is, but I'm curious, what do you know about her background? Not much. She keeps to herself. Interesting. Brennan's smile widened. Because according to her file, she has very little clinical experience. Yet multiple staff members have commented on her advanced skill set. That strikes me as unusual. Some people are just naturals. Perhaps. Or perhaps there's more to her story than she's shared. Ethan held his gaze. If you have questions about her qualifications, take it up with HR. Oh, I intend to. Brennan's tone was light, almost friendly. I just wanted to give you a heads up, in case you'd developed any professional attachments. I haven't. Good. Because I'd hate for anyone's career to be complicated by associations with personnel whose backgrounds don't hold up under scrutiny. It wasn't a threat. Not exactly. But it was close enough. Brennan walked away, and Ethan stood there, his fists clenched. He found Maya in the supply closet on the 3rd floor, restocking IV kits. She didn't look up when he entered. Brennan's coming for you, he said. Her hands didn't stop moving. I know. How? Because men like him always do. They see something that doesn't fit, and they either control it or destroy it. We need to get ahead of this. There's no getting ahead of it, Ethan. Either he finds out who I was or he doesn't. Either way, I'm gone. You don't know that. She finally looked at him. Yes, I do. Ethan stepped closer, lowered his voice. Then fight back. Tell your story before he does. Go to the board, go to the press. Show them what you've done here. Maya's laugh was hollow. You think they care? You think the board gives a damn about one nurse with a complicated past when they've got a shiny new chief of surgery promising them better metrics and fewer lawsuits? Then what are you going to do? She shrugged. Same thing I always do. Work until I can't. Ugh, that's not a plan. That's surrender. No, that's survival. She went back to restocking, her movements mechanical. Ethan wanted to grab her shoulders, shake her, make her see that she didn't have to accept this. But he knew it wouldn't matter. She'd already made her choice. So he left her there, alone in the supply closet, and went to find another way. Brennan moved fast. Within 48 hours, he'd requested a full audit of nursing staff credentials. Within 72, he'd flagged Maya's file for administrative review. The word spread through the hospital like wildfire. Did you hear? Brennan's investigating Torres. What for? Nobody knows. But he's pulling her records. Ethan tried to intervene. He went to Helen, who promised to push back but looked defeated before she even started. He went to HR, who cited policy and refused to comment. He even tried to call the hospital's legal department, but they wouldn't take his call. He was hitting walls everywhere. Meanwhile, Maya kept working. She showed up on time, did her job, and left without complaint. If she knew what was happening, she didn't show it. But Ethan saw the cracks. The way her jaw tightened when Brennan's name was mentioned. The way she avoided the administrative wing. The way she stayed late, as if putting off the inevitable. He started documenting everything, every case Maya worked, every patient she saved, every decision she made that kept someone alive. He compiled it into a file, dates, times, outcomes, witness statements from other staff. If Brennan was building a case against her, Ethan would build one for her. 3 days into the investigation, he presented it to Helen. She read through it slowly, her expression unreadable. When she finished, she set it down and looked at him. "This is good work," she said. "Will it help?" "Maybe, if we can get it in front of the right people." "Who are the right people?" Helen hesitated. "There's a board member, Dr. Angela Reyes. She's on the ethics committee. She's also former military. Navy, I think. If anyone's going to understand what Maya brings to this place, it's her. Can you get me a meeting?" "I can try." 2 days later, Ethan sat across from Dr. Angela Reyes in her office on the hospital's top floor. She was in her early 60s with sharp eyes and the kind of posture that suggested she'd spent years standing at attention. He laid out the file, explained Maya's background as much as he knew it, walked her through the cases. Reyes listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. "You're asking me to intervene in a personnel matter," she said. "I'm asking you to look at the facts. The facts are that Dr. Brennan has legitimate concerns about credential verification. That's his job. His job is to protect the hospital. Maya Torres has saved more lives in 2 months than most nurses save in 2 years. That protects the hospital." Reyes smiled faintly. "You're passionate about this." "I'm right about this." She picked up the file, flipped through it again. "You know what this looks like, don't you? A surgeon trying to protect a nurse he's gotten too close to." Ethan's face heated. "That's not what this is, isn't it?" "No, this is about a decorated combat veteran being pushed out because she makes people uncomfortable." Reyes set down the file. "If she's a decorated veteran, where's the proof? Where are her service records, her discharge papers, her commendations?" "They're classified." "Convenient. It's the truth." "Maybe. But truth doesn't matter if we can't prove it." Ethan stood. "Then help me prove it." Reyes studied him for a long moment. Finally, she sighed. "I'll make some calls, no promises, but I'll see what I can find out." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet." 1 week after Landry's death, Brennan called Maya into his office. Ethan found out from Helen, who'd heard it from a secretary. He tried to get there in time, but by the time he arrived, the door was already closed. He stood outside debating whether to knock when the door opened. Maya walked out. Her face was blank. "What happened?" Ethan asked. She didn't stop walking. "I've been placed on administrative leave pending investigation." "What investigation?" "Falsified credentials, misrepresentation of qualifications, unauthorized medical interventions." Ethan's vision blurred. "That's bullshit. That's bureaucracy. We'll fight it." "No, we won't." She kept walking. Ethan grabbed her arm. Maya! She turned, and for the first time he saw something break in her expression, something raw and exhausted and done. Let it go, Ethan, she said quietly. I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of proving myself. I'm tired of being someone I'm not. Then be who you are. I don't even know who that is anymore. She pulled away and walked out of the building. Ethan stood there, alone in the hallway, watching her disappear through the front doors. He pulled out his phone and called Reyes. She's been suspended, he said when she answered. I heard. Did you find anything? A pause. I made the calls. Her records are sealed. Military intelligence. I can't access them without federal clearance. Then get federal clearance. It doesn't work that way, Dr. Cole. Then what the hell am I supposed to do? Another pause. Longer this time. Let her go, Reyes said finally. If her past is that classified, she's either done things we can't talk about or things we shouldn't. Either way, this hospital can't protect her. She saved lives. I believe you. But it's not enough. The line went dead. Ethan stood there, staring at his phone, feeling something inside him crack. That night he couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. Brennan had set this in motion. But why? What did he gain from forcing Maya out? Unless it wasn't about gain, unless it was about control. Brennan was the kind of man who needed to be the smartest person in the room, who needed to be in charge. And Maya, quiet, competent, unshakable Maya, threatened that. She didn't ask for permission, she didn't play politics, she just did the work, and that made her dangerous. Ethan sat up, grabbed his laptop, and started digging. He pulled Brennan's file, his publications, his hospital history, his connections. And there, buried in a footnote of a medical board complaint from 6 years ago, was something. A case where Brennan had been accused of taking credit for a junior surgeon's work. The complaint had been settled quietly. The junior surgeon had left the hospital. Brennan had been promoted. Ethan kept digging. Another case. Another settlement. Another career ended while Brennan's rose. The pattern was clear. Brennan didn't tolerate competition. He eliminated it. And now he was eliminating Maya. Ethan closed his laptop, his hands shaking. He had to stop this, had to expose Brennan before he destroyed her. But he didn't know how. 2 days later, the emergency hit. It started with a 911 call from a construction site on the outskirts of Denver. Scaffolding collapse. Multiple casualties. At least a dozen workers trapped under steel and concrete. The call came through dispatch at 10:47 a.m. EMS mobilized. Blackridge went on alert. Ethan was in surgery when his pager went off. He scrubbed out, grabbed his trauma kit, and ran to the ER. The first ambulance was already there. Then the second. Then the third. Bodies everywhere. Crushed limbs. Head trauma. Internal bleeding. Helen was coordinating triage, her voice hoarse from shouting. "Where's Torres?" someone yelled. "She's on leave," Helen snapped back. "We need her." "We don't have her." The chaos escalated. Residents were overwhelmed. Nurses were running in circles. Patients were coding left and right. Ethan moved from bed to bed, trying to prioritize, but it was like trying to hold back a flood with his bare hands. A man with a severed femoral artery bled out while they waited for an OR. A woman with a tension pneumothorax arrested because nobody caught it in time. A kid, couldn't have been more than 20, screamed for his mother while his leg hung by a strip of muscle. They were losing control. Ethan looked around the room and saw the truth written on every face. They weren't good enough. Not for this. Not without her. And then, through the chaos, he heard a voice, calm, cold, absolute. "Stop." Everyone turned. Maya Torres stood in the doorway, still in her street clothes, her face unreadable. Helen stared. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know." "You're on leave." "I know." "Then why?" "Because you're drowning." Maya stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the trauma bays like a targeting system locking onto threats. "And people are dying because of it." Helen's jaw tightened. "Brennan will have your head." Maya's smile was bitter. "Let him try." She moved to the nearest gurney, assessed the patient in 3 seconds, and started calling orders. This one goes to OR2. That one needs a chest tube before he arrests. The guy in the corner has a slow bleed. He can wait. Move. And just like that, the room shifted. Ethan watched, stunned, as Maya took control. Not because anyone gave her permission, not because she had rank or title, but because she was the only one who knew how to save them. A nurse hesitated. "Doctor," Brennan said. "I don't care what Brennan said. Start the chest tube or that man dies. Your choice." The nurse moved. Maya walked to the next bed. A construction worker with a crushed pelvis, barely conscious, his blood pressure bottoming out. 2 units O-neg, wide-bore IV, get him scanned and prepped for surgery. He's got maybe 15 minutes. A resident jumped to it. She kept moving, kept directing. Her voice never rose, never wavered. She was a conductor and the ER was her orchestra, and for the first time all day they were playing the right notes. Ethan followed her from patient to patient, trying to keep up. "How do you do this?" he asked. "Do what?" "See everything. Know what's coming before it happens." She glanced at him. "You stop thinking and start seeing. Triage isn't about saving everyone. It's about saving the ones you can and accepting the ones you can't." "That's dark. That's war." Get down. For the next 3 hours, Maya ran the ER like a general commanding a battlefield. She triaged. She prioritized. She made the impossible calls: who lived, who waited, who got saved first, and the staff followed her. Not because they had to, but because she was right. The kid with the hanging leg got rushed to surgery and kept the limb. The woman with the pneumothorax got tubed and stabilized. The man with the crushed pelvis made it to the OR with minutes to spare. By the time the last ambulance cleared, 16 patients had been admitted. 4 were in surgery. 2 were critical but stable. 0 deaths. The ER fell silent except for the hum of monitors and the quiet voices of nurses finishing paperwork. Ethan found Maya in the hallway afterward, leaning against the wall, her eyes closed. "You just saved all of them," he said. She opened her eyes. "Some of them?" "No, all of them. Without you, we would have lost half." She didn't argue, just looked at him with those tired, ancient eyes. "Brennan's going to fire you for this," Ethan said. "Probably." "Was it worth it?" She thought about that for a long moment. "Yeah," she said finally. "It was." Before Ethan could respond, the elevator doors at the end of the hallway opened, and Dr. Marcus Brennan stepped out, flanked by 2 hospital security guards. His face was cold, furious. "Miss Torres," he said, his voice echoing in the hallway, "you're in violation of your administrative leave. You're trespassing on hospital property, and you've just ended your career." Maya didn't flinch. "Good. I was getting bored anyway." Brennan's expression darkened. "Security. Escort her out, and if she resists, call the police." The guards moved forward, but before they could reach her, another voice cut through the silence. Deep, commanding, military. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Everyone turned. Standing at the far end of the hallway, in full dress uniform, was a man Ethan had never seen before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of presence that made the air feel heavier. Maybe 60, but carrying it like 50. His uniform was immaculate, dark blue with sharp creases, ribbons covering his chest in neat rows of color. On his collar, the silver eagles of a full colonel. He walked forward slowly, deliberately, his boots echoing on the tile. The security guards froze. Even Brennan seemed to shrink. "Who the hell are you?" Brennan demanded, trying to recover his authority. The colonel stopped in front of Maya, looked her up and down, then smiled, small, proud, the way a commander smiles at a soldier who just completed an impossible mission. "Good to see you again, Captain Torres." The hallway went silent. "Captain?" Ethan's brain short-circuited. Maya's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Something that looked like relief mixed with exhaustion. "Colonel Reeves," she said quietly. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you." He turned to Brennan, and the temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "And you are?" Brennan straightened, trying to recover. "Dr. Marcus Brennan, interim chief of surgery, and you're interfering with internal hospital business." "No," Reeves said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "You're interfering with mine." He reached into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded document, handed it to Brennan. This is a federal personnel file, classified, authorized release under emergency protocol. Read it. Brennan unfolded it with shaking hands. His face went from pink to white in the space of 3 seconds. This can't be real. It's real. Brennan's eyes scanned the page, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. He looked at Maya, then at Reeves, then back at the document. She was Captain Maya Torres, Reeves said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Chief Medical Officer, 5th Special Forces Group. 3 combat deployments. 42 confirmed mass casualty saves under fire. Silver Star recipient, Purple Heart. And currently under my direct jurisdiction as part of a federal reintegration program. The hallway was so quiet, Ethan could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Helen had appeared from somewhere, standing at the edge of the crowd that had gathered. Her face was slack with shock. Brennan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I wasn't told, because you didn't need to know, Reeves said, stepping closer. Captain Torres's service record is classified at the federal level. Her assignments are sealed. The operations she participated in don't exist on paper. And the things she's seen and done are so far above your clearance level that even telling you she has a clearance level is probably pushing boundaries. He took another step. Brennan stepped back. But now you do know. And now you're going to reverse her suspension, reinstate her credentials with a formal apology, and issue a statement to your staff clarifying that any further harassment of federal personnel will result in consequences you really don't want to experience. Brennan's face cycled through shock, anger, fear, and finally something that looked like defeat. I'll need to consult with administration. You do that. Reeves's smile didn't reach his eyes. And while you're at it, ask yourself if your career is worth what happens when I make one phone call to the Defense Department and explain how a hospital administrator tried to force out a decorated combat veteran for doing her job too well. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Brennan looked at the security guards. They looked at the floor. We're done here, Brennan said finally, his voice tight. He turned and walked back to the elevator, his footsteps quick and uneven. The security guards followed. The elevator doors closed, and the hallway erupted in whispers. Reeves turned back to Maya. His expression softened. You okay, Captain? She nodded. I'm fine, sir. You look like hell. I've looked worse, he smiled. That you have. Ethan finally found his voice. Colonel Reeves, I'm Dr. Ethan Cole. I work with Captain Torres. With Maya. Reeves shook his hand. His grip was firm. She's told me about you. Ethan blinked. She has? In her reports. You've been covering for her, protecting her. Reeves glanced at Maya. She doesn't usually let people do that. I didn't give her much choice. Good. Helen stepped forward. Colonel, can I ask, what exactly is a federal reintegration program? Reeves's expression became carefully neutral. It's a program designed to help soldiers transition from classified special operations roles into civilian life. Participants are given new identities, new histories, and placed in positions where they can use their skills without drawing attention. So Maya's entire file is a cover, yes. Her real service record is locked in a vault at Fort Bragg. What you've been seeing is the version designed to let her work without questions. But Landry knew, Ethan said. Reeves nodded. Dr. Landry was read into the program. He agreed to employ Captain Torres and keep her background confidential. When he died, the protection died with him. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here, Maya spoke up, her voice quiet. Sir, how did you know I needed help? Reeves pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Dr. Angela Reyes, board member here, also a retired Navy captain. She's part of the oversight committee for the reintegration program. She called me 3 days ago, said one of our people was being targeted. Ethan's eyes widened. Reyes had lied to him. She'd said she couldn't help, but she'd been helping all along. I flew in this morning, Reeves continued. Was planning to meet with hospital administration quietly. Then I heard about the construction site incident and figured you'd be right in the middle of it. Maya almost smiled. You know me too well, sir. Damn right I do. He looked around at the gathered staff, nurses, residents, a few doctors who'd been drawn by the commotion. "Let me make something clear to everyone here," Reeves said, his voice carrying. "Captain Torres isn't just a good nurse. She's one of the finest combat medical officers I've ever served with. She's saved more lives under fire than most of you will save in your entire careers. And she's done it while being shot at, while mortars were landing, while buildings were collapsing around her." He paused, let the words sink in. "So if anyone in this hospital has a problem with her qualifications, with her methods, or with her presence, you can take it up with me. And trust me, you don't want to take it up with me." Nobody spoke. Reeves turned back to Maya. "You're reinstated, effective immediately. Full credentials, full authority, and I'm going to have a very long conversation with Dr. Brennan about what happens to people who target my soldiers." "Yes, sir." "Get some rest, Captain. You look like you haven't slept in a week." "I haven't." "Then go home. That's an order." Maya hesitated, looked at Ethan, then at the ER doors, where patients were still being monitored, where the work was never done. "Go," Ethan said softly. "We've got this." She nodded, turned to leave, then stopped, turned back. And for the first time since Ethan had met her, Maya Torres smiled. Not a bitter smile, not a tired smile, a real one. "Thanks," she said. Ethan didn't know if she was talking to him or Reeves or everyone or no one, but he nodded anyway. She walked out, and Ethan stood there watching her go, feeling like he'd just witnessed something he still didn't fully understand. Reeves clapped him on the shoulder. "Take care of her, Doc. She won't ask for help, but she needs it." "I will." Reeves walked to the elevator, and the crowd finally began to disperse. Helen approached Ethan, her face still pale. "Did that really just happen?" "I think so. She's a war hero." "Yeah. And we almost fired her." "Yeah." Helen laughed, sharp, disbelieving. "We're idiots." "Little bit." They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Helen's expression hardened. "Brennan's not going to let this go. You know that, right? He's been humiliated. In front of staff. By a federal officer. Men like him don't forget that." "Let him come," Ethan said. "He just found out Maya's got the entire U.S. military in her corner. What's he got? An ego and a grudge, which makes him dangerous." Before Ethan could respond, his pager went off. "Trauma incoming, multi-vehicle accident. 3 minutes out." Helen's pager chirped a second later. They looked at each other. "Back to work," Helen said. "Back to work." They ran toward the trauma bay, and behind them, the whispers continued to spread through Black Ridge Medical Center like wildfire. The quiet nurse wasn't quiet anymore. She was a captain, a combat veteran, a decorated soldier, and everyone who'd dismissed her, who'd looked past her, who'd treated her like she didn't matter. They were about to find out exactly how wrong they'd been. The whispers started before Maya even made it back to the hospital the next morning. "Did you hear what happened? A colonel, full uniform, just showed up. Torres is military, special ops. They're saying she has a silver star. Brennan tried to fire her and got shut down in front of everyone." By the time Maya walked through the ER doors at 6 a.m., the entire staff knew, or thought they knew. The details were already distorting, spreading like a game of telephone played at high speed. Some versions had her leading Black Ops missions in Afghanistan. Others said she'd be a field surgeon for Delta Force. One particularly creative rumor claimed she'd personally saved a senator's son during an embassy evacuation. Maya ignored all of it, clocked in, checked her assignments, started her rounds like it was any other shift. But it wasn't any other shift. People stared, not openly, just those quick sideways glances that made her skin itch. A resident stammered when she asked him a question. A nurse dropped an IV tray when Maya walked past. Even Helen Voss, normally unflappable, seemed to choose her words more carefully. Ethan found her in the medication room, checking inventory. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine." "You don't look fine." She turned, met his eyes. "I look the same as I did yesterday. The only thing that changed is what people think they know about me." "That bothers you." "It shouldn't, but yeah." She went back to counting pills. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, watching her. "Reeves came by this morning," he said. Had a meeting with administration. 2 hours. Closed door. I know, he texted me. What did he say? That it's handled, that Brennan's been counseled. She made air quotes with her fingers. That my file's been updated with the appropriate federal clearances, and anyone who questions my credentials again will be dealing with the DOD. That's good, right? Maya set down the pill bottle, turned to face him fully. You ever had someone fight a battle for you that you didn't ask them to fight? No? It feels like shit. Like you're weak. Like you couldn't handle it yourself. You're not weak. I know, but that's how it feels. She brushed past him, back out into the hallway. Ethan followed. Maya, wait. I have patience, Dr. Cole. The formal tone stung. He stopped walking, watched her disappear around a corner. Something had shifted. Yesterday, she'd been fighting for survival. Today, she'd won. But the victory didn't look like relief. It looked like exhaustion, wrapped in armor. Tushy. Dr. Marcus Brennan didn't come to work that day. Or the next. The official story was personal time, medical leave. Nobody used the word suspension, but everyone heard it anyway. His office remained dark. His surgeries were reassigned. And in the break rooms and cafeterias, the gossip continued. They're saying he got put on notice. For what? Harassment, targeting federal personnel. I heard the DOD threatened legal action. Brennan's career is over, but on the third day, Brennan returned. He walked through the surgical wing like nothing had happened, nodding to colleagues, checking on patients, reviewing charts. His smile was pleasant, his manner professional. But Ethan saw the difference, the tightness around his eyes, the way his hands gripped his tablet a little too hard, the clipped precision in his voice when he gave orders. Brennan was a wounded animal, and wounded animals were dangerous. That afternoon, Ethan passed Brennan in the hallway outside the OR. Dr. Cole. Brennan's tone was cordial, too cordial. Dr. Brennan, I wanted to thank you. Ethan stopped. For what? For your diligence regarding Ms. Torres's credentials. You were right to raise concerns. It's unfortunate that certain complications prevented a more thorough review. The words were smooth, professional, and completely hollow. She's qualified, Ethan said flatly. Of course, the federal government has assured us of that. Brennan's smile didn't waver, though one does wonder why such extensive precautions were necessary. What exactly was she hiding that required DOD intervention? She wasn't hiding anything. She was protecting classified information. Semantics. No, facts. Brennan's smile finally cracked. Just a fraction. Well, in any case, I'm glad the matter's resolved. I look forward to continuing our excellent working relationship. He walked away before Ethan could respond. That night, Ethan found Helen in her office, staring at her computer screen. What's wrong? He asked. She turned the monitor toward him. On screen, an email from Brennan to the surgical staff. Subject: Operational Protocol Clarification. Effective immediately, all trauma responses will follow standard chain of command. Nursing staff are reminded that medical decision-making authority rests with attending physicians. Any deviation from established protocols must be approved by the supervising physician prior to implementation. This policy ensures patient safety and maintains our commitment to evidence-based care. Ethan read it twice. He's boxing her in. Worse, he's setting up documentation. If she makes any call that saves a patient but doesn't follow textbook protocol, he can cite this and say she violated policy. That's insane. Half of trauma medicine is making judgment calls. I know, but now those judgment calls have to go through the attending. And if the attending hesitates or disagrees or just isn't there, people die. Helen nodded. He's not trying to fire her anymore. He's trying to make her useless. We have to warn her. I already did. She said she expected it. Ethan sat down, his mind racing. What do? We document everything, every case, every outcome. We build a record that shows her calls saved lives. And we hope it's enough when Brennan makes his next move. You think he will? Helen's expression was grim. Men like Brennan don't forgive humiliation. He'll wait. He'll be patient, but he'll make his move. The week passed in tense silence. Maya followed protocol, asked permission, deferred to attendings. She became the perfect nurse, competent, quiet, unremarkable. and patients started slipping through the cracks. A 17-year-old with internal bleeding waited 20 minutes for an attending to approve a CT scan. By the time they found the splenic rupture, he'd lost 2 units of blood and barely made it through surgery. An elderly woman with a subtle pneumothorax got missed because the resident dismissed Maya's observation. She coded 6 hours later. A construction worker with compartment syndrome lost feeling in his hand because the attending wanted to wait and see, instead of taking Maya's advice to prep for emergency fasciotomy. None of them died, but all of them suffered, and Maya saw every single failure written on her face. Ethan found her in the stairwell one night, sitting on the steps, her head in her hands. "You can't keep doing this," he said. "Doing what?" "Watching people get hurt because you're following rules designed to silence you." She looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. "What am I supposed to do, Ethan? Brennan's documented the policy. If I break it, he fires me. If I follow it, people suffer. Either way, I lose." "Then we change the policy." "How?" "I don't know yet, but there has to be a way." Maya stood, brushed off her scrubs. "You still think the system can be fixed? That's sweet. Naive, but sweet. You fixed it before. In combat, you made impossible calls and people lived. That was war. This is bureaucracy. Give me an AK-47 and a collapsing building any day. At least there, the enemy's shooting at you. Here, they smile while they stab you in the back." She walked past him down the stairs. Ethan stood there, fists clenched, feeling helpless. Chandi. The breaking point came on a Friday. Multi-vehicle pileup on I-25, 18 cars, 30-plus casualties. All ERs in the metro area went on divert, funneling patients to the 3 major trauma centers. Blackridge got 12. The ambulances started arriving at 4:37 p.m. The ER exploded into controlled chaos, controlled being a generous term. Ethan was wrist-deep in a chest wound when the third wave hit. Helen was intubating a kid with facial trauma. Residents were running between beds. Nurses were shouting for supplies. And Maya stood in the center of it, watching, her hands empty. A gurney rolled past her. Woman in her 40s, unconscious, vitals crashing. The resident grabbed the chart, glanced at it, started toward radiology. "Wait," Maya said. The resident stopped. "What?" "Her pressure's dropping. Probable internal bleed. She needs surgery, not imaging. Protocol says protocol's going to kill her. She's got maybe 10 minutes before she bleeds out." The resident hesitated, looked around for an attending. Brennan appeared from somewhere, his face calm. "What's the problem?" "Torres thinks the patient needs immediate surgery," the resident said. "But protocol. Protocol is clear." Brennan looked at Maya. "We stabilize, we image, we assess. In that order." "She doesn't have time for imaging," Maya said, her voice tight. "That's not your call to make." "It's the right call." "Maybe, but it's not yours." They stared at each other across the gurney. The woman between them made a wet, gurgling sound. Her lips were turning blue. Ethan abandoned his patient, jogged over. "What's going on?" "I need to get her to surgery," Maya said. "Now." Ethan looked at the monitors. Pressure, 70/40 and dropping. Heart rate, 130 and climbing. "She's right," he said. "She's bleeding out." Brennan's jaw tightened. "Doctor Cole, I appreciate your input, but I'm the senior attending on duty. We follow protocol." "Fuck protocol. She's dying." "Language, Dr. Cole." Ethan wanted to hit him, actually considered it for half a second. Instead, he turned to Maya. "Do it." She met his eyes. "If I do this, Brennan fires me." "Then he fires you, but she lives." Maya looked at the woman on the gurney, at the monitors, at Brennan's cold, calculating face. Then she grabbed the gurney and started pushing. "Stop," Brennan said. Maya didn't stop. "I said stop." She kept moving, calling over her shoulder. "Prepper 3. Exploratory lap. Probable splenic or hepatic rupture. Move." Nurses scrambled. A surgical resident fell in step beside her. The gurney rolled toward the elevator. Brennan stepped in front of them, blocking the path. "If you take that patient to surgery without imaging, you're done here." Maya stopped, met his eyes. "Then I'm done." She pushed past him. The elevator doors closed. Brennan turned to Ethan, his face white with rage. You just ended her career. No, Ethan said quietly. You did. The surgery took 90 minutes. Ruptured spleen, 2 liters of blood in the abdomen, another 20 minutes, and the woman would have been dead. Maya assisted. Ethan operated. The patient lived. When they came out of the OR, security was waiting. 2 guards. Professional. Polite. Apologetic. Ms. Torres, we need you to come with us. Maya didn't argue. Just pulled off her surgical cap, dropped it in the trash, and followed them. Ethan stripped off his gloves, ran after them. Where are you taking her? Dr. Brennan's office. I'm coming. I'm coming. They didn't stop him. Brennan's office was on the 4th floor, overlooking the city. Glass walls, expensive furniture, diplomas and awards covering every surface. He stood behind his desk when they entered, his expression neutral. Ms. Torres, Dr. Cole, thank you for joining me. Maya stood in front of the desk, her arms crossed. Ethan stood beside her. The patient's stable, Ethan said. Ruptured spleen, another 15 minutes, and she'd have bled out. I'm aware, Brennan said. I've reviewed the operative report. Excellent work, Dr. Cole. Maya made the call. Ms. Torres violated direct orders from the senior attending physician. She bypassed established protocol, and she did so in front of staff, patients, and visitors. She saved a life. She created liability. Ethan's hands curled into fists. You're seriously going to fire her for saving someone? I'm going to terminate her employment for insubordination and reckless endangerment. Brennan opened a folder, pulled out a document. This is effective immediately. Ms. Torres, you're dismissed. Security will escort you from the building. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Maya didn't move, didn't speak. Ethan stepped forward. You can't do this. I can, and I am. She's federal personnel. Colonel Reeves oversees her reintegration into civilian life. He doesn't control hospital employment decisions. I've already spoken with our legal team. This termination is within my authority. Ethan's mind raced. There had to be something, some argument, some loophole. The board will support my decision. Patient safety is our highest priority. She saved a patient. She violated protocol. Brennan's voice rose for the first time. She defied a direct order from a superior. That is grounds for termination in any workplace, civilian or military. The room fell silent. Brennan sat down, his calm restored. Ms. Torres, do you have anything to say? Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, small, bitter, exhausted. Yeah, go to hell. She turned and walked out. Ethan followed. In the hallway, he caught her arm. We'll fight this. Reeves can't do anything. Brennan's right. This is an employment decision, not a federal matter. Then we go to the board. We show them the outcomes. Ethan. She stopped, turned to face him. It's over. I'm done fighting. You can't just give up. I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. I don't belong here. I never did. That's not true. Isn't it? I'm a soldier pretending to be a nurse. I'm trained to make calls under fire, not to ask permission from bureaucrats who care more about liability than lives. This was always going to end like this. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but he couldn't find the words. Maya reached into her pocket, pulled out her ID badge, handed it to him. Give this to Helen. Tell her thank you for everything. Where are you going? I don't know yet. She walked toward the elevator. Ethan stood there, holding her badge, watching her leave. The elevator doors started to close, and then they stopped. A hand shot out, blocking the sensor. The door slid back open. Colonel Reeves stepped out, still in uniform, his face carved from stone. Behind him, 3 more officers, 2 Army captains, and a Navy commander, all in dress uniforms, all wearing expressions that suggested they were not here for a friendly visit. Captain Torres, Reeves said. Going somewhere? Maya straightened instinctively. Sir, I've been terminated. I'm aware. I got the call 20 minutes ago. Then you know there's nothing. There's always something. Reeves looked past her, toward Brennan's office. Is he in there? Yes, sir. Good. Reeves walked past her, the other officers falling in step behind him. Ethan and Maya exchanged glances. Then they followed. Reeves didn't knock, just opened the door and walked in like he owned the place. Brennan looked up, startled. "Colonel Reeves, I wasn't expecting—" "Dr. Brennan, we need to talk." "I'm in the middle of—" "Sit down!" It wasn't a request. Brennan sat. Reeves remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back. The other officers flanked him, silent and imposing. "I understand you've terminated Captain Torres's employment. Ms. Torres violated hospital policy. I had no choice." "You had many choices. You chose the one that satisfied your ego." Brennan's face flushed. "That's not— Let me tell you a story, Doctor." Reeves's voice was calm, almost conversational. 3 years ago, Captain Torres was embedded with a special operations unit in eastern Afghanistan. They were hit during a routine patrol. IED, 4 men down, 1 critically. The medic was killed in the blast. Torres was a logistics officer at the time, not medical, but she'd had combat lifesaver training. He paused. She performed an emergency cricothyroidotomy with a ballpoint pen and a knife, kept the soldier breathing until air support arrived. Then she triaged 3 other casualties while taking intermittent small arms fire. All 4 soldiers survived. Brennan said nothing. For that action, she received a field promotion and was reassigned to medical operations. Over the next 18 months, she led mass casualty responses in 7 separate combat zones. She saved 42 confirmed lives, and she did it while people were actively trying to kill her. Reeves stepped closer to the desk. "So when you tell me she violated protocol by making a split-second decision to save a dying woman, I'm trying very hard to give a damn about your protocol. And I'm failing." "This is a hospital, not a war zone," Brennan said, his voice tight. "You're right. In a war zone, the enemy shoots at you. Here, they hide behind policy and paperwork. Which one takes more courage, do you think?" The question hung in the air. One of the captains behind Reeves spoke up. "Sir, we have the documentation." Reeves nodded. The captain stepped forward, placed a thick folder on Brennan's desk. "That," Reeves said, "is a compiled record of every case Captain Torres has worked since arriving at Black Ridge Medical Center. 63 critical interventions, 58 successful outcomes. 3 patients lost despite her efforts, all terminal cases that exceeded her scope of practice. 2 patients she identified as requiring specialized care who were successfully transferred." Brennan opened the folder, started flipping through pages. "You'll also find witness statements from 17 medical professionals attesting to her competence, professionalism, and clinical judgment. And at the back, you will find a formal recommendation from the Department of Defense that Captain Torres be considered for civilian medical credentials at the physician assistant or nurse practitioner level based on her military training and field experience." Brennan's hands were shaking slightly. "Now," Reeves continued, "you can maintain your termination decision. That's your right. But if you do, I will personally ensure that every major news outlet in Colorado knows that Black Ridge Medical Center fired a Silver Star recipient for saving a patient's life. I will have my staff compile a detailed report on your pattern of retaliation against personnel who threaten your authority. And I will make certain that the medical board understands exactly how many patients have been negatively impacted by your need for control." He leaned down, hands on the desk. "Or you can reinstate her with a formal apology and a new title, Clinical Emergency Consultant, which will give her the authority to make the calls she's already making without having to beg permission from people too slow to keep up." Brennan's jaw worked. His eyes darted between Reeves and the folder. "I'll need to consult with the board," he said finally. "You have 24 hours. That's not enough time. 24 hours, doctor, or I start making phone calls." Reeves straightened, turned, and walked out. The other officers followed. Maya stood in the hallway, her expression unreadable. Reeves stopped in front of her. "You good, Captain?" "I didn't ask for this, sir." "I know, but you're getting it anyway." He glanced at the other officers. "Captain Morrison, Commander Hayes, Captain Ruiz, these are your new advocates. If Brennan or anyone else in this hospital gives you trouble, you call them." Captain Morrison, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, handed Maya a card. "Anytime, day or night." "Sir, I don't need—" "Yes, you do." Reeves's voice softened. You've been fighting alone for 3 years. Deployment after deployment, mission after mission, always the one holding the line. You're out now. You don't have to do that anymore." Maya's throat worked. She looked away. 24 hours, Reeves said. "Then we see what Brennan's made of." He left. The other officers followed, leaving Maya and Ethan alone in the hallway. Maya stared at the card in her hand. "You okay?" Ethan asked. She laughed, sharp, broken. "I have no idea. Reeves just handed Brennan his ass. Reeves threatened him. That's different than beating him. You think he'll fight back?" Maya looked toward Brennan's office. Through the glass walls, she could see him on the phone, his face red, his free hand gesturing sharply. "Yeah," she said quietly. "He'll fight back." Brennan made his move 16 hours later. Not against Maya, against Ethan. It started with an email, sent at 4 a.m. to the chief medical officer, the hospital president, and the entire surgical staff. Subject: serious patient safety concerns. It has come to my attention that Dr. Ethan Cole has been operating outside his scope of practice, delegating critical medical decisions to unlicensed personnel and circumventing established chain of command protocols. Attached is documentation of multiple instances where Dr. Cole deferred to nursing staff for triage and treatment decisions that should have been made by attending physicians. Given Dr. Cole's recent advocacy for Ms. Maya Torres, whose termination is currently under review, I believe these violations warrant immediate investigation. Patient safety cannot be compromised by personal relationships or misplaced loyalty. The email hit Ethan's inbox at 6:15 a.m., 30 seconds after it hit everyone else's. He read it twice, his coffee going cold in his hand. Then his phone rang. "Cole." The voice on the other end was Dr. Patricia Monroe, Chief Medical Officer. "My office, 7 a.m. Don't be late." The line went dead. Ethan sat in his apartment, staring at his phone. Brennan wasn't just going after Maya anymore. He was going after anyone who stood with her, and the war had just begun. Ethan walked into Dr. Patricia Monroe's office at 6:58 a.m., his tie loose, his coffee abandoned in the car. Monroe was already seated behind her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, Brennan's email open on her screen. She was 60, gray-haired, and known throughout Blackridge for two things: an encyclopedic knowledge of medical law and an absolute intolerance for bullshit. She looked up when he entered, didn't smile. "Sit." Ethan sat. Monroe turned her monitor toward him. "You read this?" "Yeah." "Is it true?" "Depends on how you define delegating critical medical decisions." "Don't get cute with me, Cole. Did you or did you not defer triage decisions to Maya Torres?" Ethan met her eyes. "I trusted her clinical judgment, which turned out to be correct every single time." "That's not what I asked." "Yes, I deferred to her, because she was right, and I knew it." Monroe leaned back, removed her glasses. "You understand what Brennan's doing here, don't you? He's trying to take me down because I stood up for her. No, he's trying to force the board to choose between protecting you or protecting the hospital from liability. And when they choose the hospital, which they will, you'll be gone, Torres will be gone, and Brennan will have eliminated everyone who challenged him." Ethan's stomach tightened. "So what do I do?" "You tell me the truth. All of it. Every instance where Torres made a call, every outcome, every witness, and then we decide if there's a defense or if you start looking for a new job." For the next hour, Ethan laid it out. The multi-car crash, the construction site collapse, the nightclub shooting, every case where Maya had seen what others missed, called what others couldn't. Monroe took notes, asked questions. Her expression remained neutral. When he finished, she set down her pen. "Here's the problem. Everything you just described, while medically sound, violates about 6 different hospital policies regarding scope of practice and chain of command. Brennan's email isn't wrong, it's just vindictive." "So I'm done." "Not necessarily." Monroe pulled up another file on her computer. "I've been going through Torres's compiled record, the one Colonel Reeves provided, and I found something interesting." She turned the screen, a page of military documentation, heavily redacted, with several paragraphs highlighted. According to this, Torres completed advanced trauma life support training equivalent to a physician assistant program. She was authorized to perform emergency procedures up to and including surgical airway management, chest decompression, and hemorrhage control. In combat zones, she functioned at a level above most paramedics and on par with junior physicians. Ethan leaned forward, so she was qualified. In a war zone, under military authority, this is a civilian hospital. But the training's the same. The liability isn't. Monroe closed the file. However, there is a path forward. If Torres were to obtain civilian credentials, PA certification, ACLS, ATLS, then her previous actions could be retroactively classified as operating within an expanded scope of practice. How long would that take? Normally, a year or more. But given her military training and field experience, we might be able to fast-track it, 3 to 6 months. And in the meantime, you follow protocol. She follows protocol, and we hope Brennan doesn't push this to the board before we can build a stronger defense. Ethan stood. He'll push it. You know he will. Monroe looked at him over her glasses. Then you'd better hope Colonel Reeves is as good at political warfare as he is at showing up in dress uniform. Ethan found Maya in the hospital cafeteria, sitting alone at a corner table, picking at a sandwich she clearly had no intention of eating. He slid into the seat across from her. Monroe wants you to get PA certification. Maya looked up. What? Physician assistant, fast track program. It would legitimize everything you've been doing and give Brennan nothing to stand on. I'm not a PA. You functioned as one in the field, the training's equivalent. The training was survival. I learned by doing, not by sitting in a classroom. Then this'll be easy. Maya set down her sandwich. Ethan, I didn't come here to climb another ladder. I came here to be left alone, to work, to help people without the weight of rank and responsibility and all the fucking bureaucracy. I know, but Brennan's not going to let that happen. He's coming for both of us. The only way we survive is if we take away his ammunition. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. How long? She asked finally. 3 to 6 months. Maybe less if Reeves pulls strings. And if I say no, then we both get fired and Brennan wins. Maya laughed bitterly. So my choices are submit to more training I don't need or let him destroy us. Great options. I didn't say they were great. Just the only ones we've got. She looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time he saw something in her eyes that looked like trust. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Yeah? Yeah. But if I have to sit through one PowerPoint about bedside manner, I'm out. Ethan smiled. Deal. Done. Brennan's next move came 2 days later. Not through official channels, not through email, through the patients. It started with a lawsuit, filed by the family of the woman Maya had rushed to surgery, the one with the ruptured spleen. The claim, unauthorized treatment, negligent care, emotional distress. The woman had survived, was healing, would make a full recovery, but her family's attorney argued that Maya's decision to bypass imaging had been reckless, that if the diagnosis had been wrong, the patient could have died on the table, that Black Ridge Medical Center had allowed unqualified personnel to make life or death decisions. The lawsuit named Maya. It named Ethan. It named the hospital. And it had Brennan's fingerprints all over it. Helen found Ethan in the locker room, waving a printed copy of the complaint. Did you see this? Yeah. The family's attorney is Gerald Hoskins. He's represented Brennan in 2 separate malpractice defenses. Ethan's jaw tightened, so Brennan fed them the case. Or outright paid for it. Either way, this is retaliation. Can we prove it? Not without discovery, and by the time we get there, the damage is done. The lawsuit's public record. Every news outlet in Denver is going to run with unqualified nurse performs unauthorized surgery. Ethan slammed his locker. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter. The narrative's already written. She was right. By noon, the story had hit local news. By evening, it was trending on social media. By the next morning, protesters were outside the hospital with signs reading, "Patient safety first" and "Fire Torres." Maya didn't come to work that day, or the next. Ethan called her cell. No answer. Texted her. Nothing. Finally, he drove to her apartment. A small studio in a converted warehouse near the rail yards. He knocked. No response. Maya, I know you're in there. Silence. I'm not leaving until you open the door. More silence. Then footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened 6 inches. Maya looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. Her eyes were bloodshot. What do you want, Ethan? To make sure you're okay. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're hiding. I'm regrouping. By yourself. In the dark. She didn't argue, just stepped aside and let him in. The apartment was sparse. A futon. A small table. A duffel bag in the corner. No pictures, no decorations, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. You travel light, Ethan said. Habit. He turned to face her. The lawsuit's bullshit. Monroe's already drafting a response. We'll fight it. They don't care about the lawsuit. They care about the story. And the story's already out there. Then we change the story. How? Ethan pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. A news article. Decorated veteran targeted by hospital administration. Reeves leaked it? Maya asked. Not leaked. Released. Full statement. Your service record. The unclassified parts. Photos from your deployments. Testimony from soldiers you saved. He's turning you into a hero. Maya's face went pale. I didn't want this. I know, but it's happening anyway. She sat down on the futon, her head in her hands. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. The attention, the scrutiny, the expectation that I'm some kind of symbol. You don't have to be a symbol, you just have to be yourself. And if myself isn't good enough, Ethan sat beside her. It already is. The media war escalated fast. Reeves's statement triggered a wave of support. Veterans groups rallied. Military advocacy organizations issued statements. A GoFundMe for Maya's legal defense hit $50,000 in 12 hours. But Brennan had allies too. Medical liability groups, hospital administrators from across the state, physicians who saw Maya's actions as a dangerous precedent. The debate played out on cable news, talk radio, social media. Hero or liability? Combat medicine versus civilian standards. When does experience trump credentials? Maya watched it all from her apartment, her phone off, her curtains drawn. Ethan kept working, kept documenting, kept building the case. And then, 3 days before the hospital board's emergency meeting to decide Maya's fate, something broke. A nurse named Kelly Griffith, one of the junior staff who'd worked the construction site collapse, came forward with a recording, audio from the trauma bay. Captured on her phone accidentally, left running in her pocket. And on that recording, Brennan's voice. Don't let Torres touch that patient. I don't care what she says. If she makes any calls, document it. We need evidence of her overstepping. The recording was time-stamped, during the construction collapse. While patients were dying, Brennan had deliberately sabotaged the response to build his case against Maya. Kelly released the audio to a local investigative reporter. It aired that night. By morning, Brennan was suspended pending investigation. Beside, the board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Ethan arrived early, dressed in his best suit, every piece of documentation organized in a leather portfolio. Helen was already there, wearing the closest thing to armor she owned, a charcoal blazer and an expression that could cut glass. Maya arrived 10 minutes before start time. She wore dark slacks and a simple white blouse. No makeup, hair pulled back. She looked like she was walking into a court-martial. Colonel Reeves was there too, flanked by Captain Morrison, both in dress uniform. The board consisted of 9 members. Hospital executives, physicians, community representatives. They sat in a semicircle, their faces carefully neutral. Dr. Angela Reyes, the board member Monroe had mentioned, sat at the center. Monroe called the meeting to order, laid out the situation in clinical terms. Maya's termination, Ethan's alleged violations, Brennan's suspension, the lawsuit, the media firestorm. Then she called witnesses. First up, Helen Voss. She testified about Maya's performance during mass casualty events, provided outcome data, survival rates, complications avoided. Then Ethan. He walked the board through specific cases, showed them the documentation, the witness statements, the compiled record from Reeves. Then Kelly Griffith. She played the recording. Brennan's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. The board member's expression shifted, neutral to concerned to outright disturbed. Then Reeves stood. He didn't present evidence, didn't argue policy. He just told a story. About a 24-year-old logistics officer who volunteered for medical training because her unit's medic had been killed. About a woman who learned emergency medicine in tents while mortar rounds landed outside. About 42 soldiers who came home to their families because one person refused to quit. Captain Torres didn't choose this fight, Reeves said. She just wanted to work, to help people, to use the skills she'd learned in the worst circumstances imaginable. And instead of supporting her, this institution tried to bury her. He paused. That's not just wrong. It's shameful. The room was silent. Reyes spoke. Captain Torres, do you have anything to add? Maya stood, walked to the front, faced the board. I didn't come here to be a hero, she said. I came here to disappear, to be normal, to do a job without the weight of lives and missions and all the things I carried for 4 years. Her voice was steady, quiet, but it filled the room. But I can't do that, because the moment someone's dying in front of me, I don't see protocol. I see the mission, and the mission is simple: keep them alive, whatever it takes. She looked at each board member in turn. If that's incompatible with how this hospital operates, then I don't belong here. But don't pretend my methods are reckless when they're the only reason some of your patients are still breathing. She sat down. The board deliberated for 45 minutes. When they returned, Reyes spoke. The board has reached the following decisions. Dr. Marcus Brennan's suspension is extended pending a full investigation into professional misconduct and patient endangerment. If the allegations are substantiated, termination proceedings will begin immediately. Ethan exhaled. Regarding Ms. Maya Torres, her termination is rescinded. She is reinstated effective immediately with the new title of Clinical Emergency Specialist. This position will grant her expanded scope of practice authority in trauma situations, pending completion of civilian PA certification within 6 months. Maya's eyes widened. Dr. Ethan Cole, the allegations against you are dismissed. However, you are formally counseled to adhere to chain of command protocols in non-emergency situations. Ethan nodded. This meeting is adjourned. Outside the boardroom, Reeves clapped Maya on the shoulder. Congratulations, Captain. She looked dazed. What just happened? You won. I didn't do anything. You told the truth. That's enough. Helen hugged her. Kelly shook her hand. Other staff members who'd gathered in the hallway started clapping. Maya looked overwhelmed, lost. Ethan pulled her aside. You okay? I don't know. I thought I wanted to disappear. Now everyone knows who I am. Is that a bad thing? She thought about it. Ask me in 6 months. But the story wasn't over. That night, Ethan got a call from Monroe. We have a problem. What now? Brennan's lawyer just filed a wrongful termination suit against the hospital, claiming he was made a scapegoat for systemic failures. He's demanding full reinstatement and damages. Ethan's stomach dropped. He can't win that. Maybe not, but he can drag it out, make it expensive, make it public, and the board's already nervous about more media attention. So what are you saying? I'm saying there's going to be pressure to settle. Give him a payout, make him go away quietly. That's bullshit. That's business. Ethan hung up, his mind racing. Brennan was cornered, exposed, but he still had one weapon left, litigation, and he was going to use it. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the hospital to find a crowd gathered in the main lobby. Not protesters this time. Media, cameras, reporters shouting questions. He pushed through, trying to reach the elevator. Dr. Cole, is it true Blackridge is settling with Dr. Brennan? Dr. Cole, do you stand by your decision to defer to Ms. Torres? He didn't answer, just kept moving. Inside the elevator, his phone buzzed, a text from Helen, conference room, now. He found her there with Maya and Monroe. All three looked grim. What's going on? Ethan asked. Monroe slid a document across the table. The board's offering Brennan a settlement, $2 million, non-disclosure agreement. He walks away, keeps his medical license, and we avoid a prolonged legal battle. Ethan stared at the paper. You're kidding. I wish I was. He tried to sabotage patient care. He's on tape. And his lawyer's arguing it was taken out of context, that he was trying to protect patients from unauthorized treatment. It's garbage, but it's enough to create reasonable doubt. Maya spoke up. So he wins. He gets paid, Monroe corrected. That's not the same as winning. Feels pretty close. Ethan's hands curled into fists. There has to be another way. If there is, I haven't found it. The room fell silent. Then Maya stood. I need to make a call. She walked out. Ethan looked at Monroe. What's she doing? I have no idea.
Check pass.
20 minutes later, Maya returned. It's handled, she said. What's handled? Helen asked. Brennan's lawsuit. It's going away. Ethan blinked. How? I called Reeves. He made some calls. Turns out Brennan's malpractice history is more extensive than anyone knew. 3 settlements in 5 years, all sealed, all covered up. Monroe leaned forward. How did you? Military intelligence contacts. They pulled his records, found complaints from former residents, nurses, even attending physicians. Pattern of negligence, credit stealing, retaliation, all documented, all buried. She dropped a USB drive on the table. Reeves is releasing it to the state medical board this afternoon. By tomorrow, Brennan's going to be too busy defending his license to worry about a lawsuit. Ethan stared at her. You just destroyed his career. No, I just exposed what he'd been hiding. Monroe picked up the drive, turned it over in her hands. This is comprehensive. Reeves doesn't do anything halfway. Helen smiled. Remind me never to piss off the colonel. The news broke that evening. State Medical Board opens investigation into Dr. Marcus Brennan. Multiple complaints. Pattern of misconduct. License suspended pending review. Brennan's lawsuit was quietly withdrawn. His settlement offer evaporated. Within a week, he resigned from Black Ridge Medical Center. Within a month, his medical license was revoked. The man who'd tried to bury Maya Torres had buried himself. 3 months later, Maya passed her PA certification exams. Not because she needed to. The board had already reinstated her. The hospital had already changed its policies, but because she wanted to. She walked into the testing center alone, walked out 4 hours later with a passing score. Ethan met her outside. How'd it go? Fine. Just fine? She smiled, small, real. Okay, better than fine. They walked to his car. The Denver skyline stretched out before them, golden in the late afternoon sun. What happens now? Ethan asked. Maya looked at the city, at the hospital in the distance, at the life she'd fought to build. Now I go to work, and I stop apologizing for being good at it. That's it? That's everything. What? The first shift after her certification, Maya walked into the ER with her new badge. Clinical Emergency Specialist, PAC. The staff knew. Word had spread. When she passed the nurse's station, they clapped. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet acknowledgement. She nodded. Kept walking. In the trauma bay, a new case was rolling in. Car accident, critical injuries, the kind of chaos she knew how to navigate. She stepped up to the gurney. Assessed. Prioritized. Started calling orders. And for the first time since she'd walked into Black Ridge Medical Center, nobody questioned her. They just moved. Because they knew what Ethan had known all along. Maya Torres wasn't just a nurse, wasn't just a veteran, wasn't just a survivor. She was the best chance their patients had, and that was enough. But late that night, after the shift ended, after the patients were stable, after everyone else had gone home, Ethan found a message on his desk. A handwritten note. No signature. You should know, Brennan's not done. He's angry. Humiliated. And men like him don't forget. Watch your back. Ethan read it twice, then looked up. Through the window, across the parking lot, a car sat in the shadows. Engine off? Lights off? Just watching. He couldn't see the driver, but he knew. Brennan was gone from the hospital, but he wasn't gone. And somewhere in the dark, he was planning his next move. Ethan stood at his office window, staring at the car in the darkness. The note was still in his hand, the paper rough against his palm. He pulled out his phone, called Maya. She answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Are you home? Yeah, why? Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. A pause. Ethan, what happened? I got a warning about Brennan. Someone thinks he's planning something. Who sent it? I don't know. Anonymous? Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. The soldier surfacing. Where are you? Still at the hospital. Stay there. I'm coming. Maya. She'd already hung up. Ethan looked back at the parking lot. The car was gone. He stood there for another 10 minutes, watching the empty space where it had been, feeling the weight of something unfinished pressing against his chest. Maya arrived 20 minutes later, dressed in jeans and a dark jacket, her hair pulled back tight. She looked like she was preparing for a mission. Show me the note, she said. Ethan handed it over. She read it once, flipped it over, held it up to the light. Standard printer paper, laser printed, no watermark. Could be from anywhere. You sound like a detective. I was trained to assess threats. This qualifies. She pulled out her phone, took a photo of the note, sent it somewhere. Who are you texting? Ethan asked. Captain Morrison, DOD liaison. If Brennan's making threats, they need to know. It's not a direct threat, just a warning. From someone who knows something. That makes it intelligence. She walked to the window, scanned the parking lot. The car. You see a plate? Too dark. Make? Model? Dark sedan, maybe a BMW. Maybe not. She nodded, still scanning. Brennan's not stupid enough to do this himself. He'll use someone else, a lawyer, a private investigator, someone with plausible deniability. You think he's watching us? I think he's waiting for an opening, and we're not giving him one. Her phone buzzed. She read the message, her expression tightening. Morrison's pulling Brennan's financials. If he hired someone, there'll be a trail. How long will that take? Couple days? Maybe less. Ethan sat down, rubbed his face. This is insane. He lost. His license is gone. His career's over. What's left to fight for? Maya turned from the window. Revenge, pride, the need to prove he wasn't wrong, take your pick. That's not rational. Wounded egos never are. The next 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. No more notes, no more mysterious cars, no contact from Brennan or anyone associated with him. Maya went to work, ran trauma calls, taught a class on combat triage to the residents. She moved through the hospital like she owned it, and nobody questioned her anymore. Ethan watched her transform. The woman who'd once hidden in supply closets now walked the ER with her head up, her voice steady. She'd stopped apologizing for taking up space, but he also saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes tracked exits, the way she kept her phone within reach at all times. She was waiting. They both were. On the third day, Morrison called. Maya answered, listened, her face going still. Where? She asked. A pause. How long ago? Another pause. We're on our way. She hung up, looked at Ethan. Brennan bought a gun 2 days ago, registered to a P.O. box in Aurora. Ethan's blood went cold. Call the police. Morrison already did. They're trying to locate him, but there's a problem. What problem? He bought the gun legally. No prior criminal record, no restraining orders. Until he makes a move, they can't touch him. So we just wait for him to try something? Maya's jaw tightened. No, we make sure he can't. Morrison met them at a coffee shop 2 blocks from the hospital. She was out of uniform, dressed in civilian clothes, but she carried herself like military. She slid a folder across the table. Everything we pulled. Financial records, phone logs, travel history. Ethan opened it. Pages of bank statements, credit card receipts, cell tower pings. He's been to the hospital 3 times in the last week, Morrison said. Parking garage, employee entrance, never goes inside, just sits, watches. Maya's expression darkened. Surveillance. That's our read. He's tracking patterns, shifts, routines. Mine or Ethan's? Both. Ethan felt sick. What's he planning? Unknown, but the gun purchase suggests he's escalating. Maya leaned forward. Can you get a restraining order? Make him stay away from the hospital? Working on it, But it takes time, 48 hours minimum, and that's if a judge agrees there's credible threat. There's a gun. Legal gun. No threats made. No contact initiated. Legally, he hasn't done anything wrong. Yet, Maya said. Morrison nodded. Yet. Bond. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, playing through scenarios. Brennan shows up at the hospital, confronts Maya, pulls the gun. Brennan follows one of them home, waits, attacks. Brennan doesn't do anything, just sits in the dark, watching, letting the fear do the work for him. At 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Maya. You awake? He called her. Can't sleep either? She asked. No. Want company? 20 minutes later, she was at his door. She looked exhausted, her eyes shadowed, her usual composure fraying at the edges. They sat on his couch, not talking, just existing in the same space. You ever feel like you can't escape it? She asked finally. Escape what? The fight, the war. I thought leaving the service would mean leaving all that behind, but it just follows me. Different uniform, same battle. Ethan didn't have an answer, so he just sat with her. I'm tired, Ethan, she said quietly. I'm so fucking tired of proving I deserve to exist in spaces people don't think I belong. You shouldn't have to. But I do. Every day. Every shift. Every time someone questions my call or second guesses my judgment. And now Brennan's out there, armed, angry, and I'm supposed to just wait for him to make his move. Her voice cracked. Ethan reached over, took her hand. You're not alone this time. She looked at him, her eyes wet. I've been alone for so long, I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. She laughed, sharp and broken. Just like that? Just like that. They sat in silence, her hand in his, until the sky outside started to lighten. Tip. The call came at 6:43 a.m. Hospital security. Brennan had been spotted in the parking garage. Level 3. Employee section. Maya and Ethan were both already at the hospital. They ran. Security met them at the stairwell. He's still there, just sitting in his car. Did you approach him? Maya asked. No, you said to call first. Good. They climbed to level 3, moved quietly, staying behind the concrete pillars. There. A black BMW. Colorado plates. Engine running. And inside, Marcus Brennan. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting, staring at the hospital entrance. Maya pulled out her phone, started recording. What are you doing? Ethan whispered. Documenting. If he moves, I want it on video. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Then Brennan's door opened. He stepped out, dressed in a suit, his movements careful, deliberate, and in his right hand, a gun. Not pointed, just held, loose at his side. Maya's grip on her phone tightened. Security started to move, but she held up a hand. Not yet. Brennan walked toward the entrance. Slow, measured, then stopped, turned, looked directly at the pillar where they were hiding. I know you're there, Torres. His voice echoed in the concrete space. Maya stepped out. Ethan tried to grab her arm, but she shook him off. Dr. Brennan, she said calmly. He smiled. Cold. Empty. Captain Torres. Or should I say, clinical emergency specialist. Either works. You destroyed my career. You destroyed your own career. I just exposed it. Brennan's hand tightened on the gun, still not raising it, just holding. You cost me everything, he said. My reputation, my license, my future. You cost yourself those things the moment you decided patient care was secondary to your ego. Ego? Brennan laughed. You're one to talk. Combat hero, silver star, walking around this hospital like you own it. I don't own anything. I just do my job. Your job was to follow orders, to know your place, to remember you're a nurse, not a doctor. Maya's expression didn't change. I'm a PA now, certified, licensed, legally authorized to do everything I was already doing. So your point is, what exactly? Brennan's face twisted. My point is that you don't belong here. You never did, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it. How? By shooting me in a parking garage? His hand shifted on the gun. That's what you're here for, isn't it? Maya continued, her voice steady. To scare me. To make me quit. To prove you still have power. I have plenty of power. You have a gun and a grudge. That's not power. That's desperation. Brennan raised the gun, not pointing it at her. Not yet. Just lifting it, making sure she saw. Security moved. Maya held up her hand again. Wait. Ethan's heart was pounding so hard he could barely breathe. Maya stepped closer. Put the gun down, Marcus. You don't tell me what to do. I'm not telling you. I'm advising you. Because right now you're on camera. She gestured to her phone, still recording, in a public space, brandishing a firearm at a federal veteran. That's not just assault. That's a federal crime. And unlike your malpractice cases, you can't settle your way out of this one. Brennan's hand wavered. You've already lost, Maya said quietly. Your career, your license, your reputation. The only question now is whether you lose your freedom too. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Brennan lowered the gun. His hand was shaking. His face was pale. I was the best surgeon in this hospital, he said, his voice breaking. I saved lives. I built this department, and you took it all away. No, Maya said. You took it away. When you prioritized control over care. When you buried complaints instead of addressing them. When you tried to destroy anyone who threatened your authority. She stepped closer, close enough to take the gun if she wanted to. I didn't come here to ruin you, Marcus. I came here to work, to help people, to disappear into a quiet life. But you wouldn't let me. You made this fight, and now you've lost it. Brennan's shoulders sagged. The gun dropped to his side. Security moved in, took the weapon, cuffed him. He didn't resist, just stood there, defeated, while they led him away. Maya stopped recording. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally hitting. Ethan reached her, grabbed her shoulders. You okay? Yeah. You're sure? Yeah. But she wasn't. He could see it in her eyes, the cost of staying calm, of facing down a man with a gun, of winning another battle she never asked to fight. He pulled her into a hug. She resisted for half a second, then collapsed against him, her breath coming in short gasps. It's over, he whispered. It's done. She nodded against his chest. Brennan was arrested, charged with aggravated menacing, harassment, and unlawful possession of a weapon in a restricted area. The video Maya recorded went viral within hours. Not because she released it, Morrison did that with Maya's permission. The media ran with it. Disgraced surgeon threatens veteran. Hospital hero faces down armed attacker. Combat medic's courage. Maya hated the attention, but she didn't hide from it. She gave one interview, local news, 5 minutes. The reporter asked her how she'd stayed so calm. I've faced worse, Maya said simply. And I've learned that fear is a choice. You can let it control you, or you can control it. What do you want people to know about what happened? Maya thought about it. That speaking up has consequences, but silence has worse ones. And that standing your ground isn't about being fearless. It's about being more afraid of what happens if you don't. The interview aired that night. By morning, it had 3 million views. Brennan took a plea deal, 3 years probation, mandatory counseling, permanent surrender of his medical license. The lawsuit against Maya was dropped. The family whose case Brennan had manipulated issued a public apology. The hospital settled with no admission of wrongdoing, but established a new protocol, the Torres Protocol. Any staff member with documented advanced training, military, paramedic, international, could apply for expanded scope of practice. No more buried credentials. No more hidden expertise. Helen Voss was promoted to Chief of Emergency Medicine. Her first act, making Maya her second in command. I don't want it, Maya said when Helen offered. Too bad. You're getting it anyway. I'm not a leader. You led 42 soldiers out of combat zones. You led this ER through 3 mass casualty events. You led Brennan straight into federal custody. You're a leader. You just don't like the paperwork. Maya smiled despite herself. The paperwork does suck. Hire an assistant. You're management now. Delegate. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of a room full of medical students at the University of Colorado. Guest lecture. combat medicine and civilian trauma care. She'd agreed reluctantly, spent 3 days preparing, almost canceled twice. But Ethan had pushed her. You have something to teach. Teach it. So she did. She talked about triage under fire, about making impossible choices, about the difference between protocol and survival. The students listened, rapt. One raised her hand. How do you deal with the ones you can't save? Maya was quiet for a moment. You remember them, she said finally. Every single one. Their faces, their names if you knew them, the choice you made and why you made it. You carry that weight and you use it to save the next one. The student nodded, her eyes wet. After the lecture, a young woman approached Maya, early 20s, nervous. I'm a veteran, she said. Army medic, 2 deployments. I'm trying to transition to civilian medicine, but I don't know where to start. Maya looked at her, saw herself 3 years ago, lost, exhausted, trying to disappear. She pulled out a card. Her new title, Director of Trauma Services, Black Ridge Medical Center. Call me Monday. We'll figure it out. The young woman's face lit up. Really? Really. You've already done the hard part. Now you just need someone to open the door. That night, Maya and Ethan sat on the roof of the hospital parking garage. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling in the cold air. You did good today, Ethan said. I talked for an hour. Anyone can do that. No. You gave that kid hope. That's harder. Maya was quiet. I didn't have that when I started. Someone who understood, who'd been there. You do now. She looked at him. Yeah, I do. They sat in comfortable silence. You ever think about what comes next? Ethan asked. Like what? I don't know. The future, plans, dreams, things normal people think about. Maya smiled. I'm not normal people. No, you're not. But yeah, I think about it sometimes. And? She looked out at the city. I think I want to build something. A program for veterans transitioning to medical careers. Something that helps them navigate the bureaucracy and the credentialing and all the bullshit I had to fight through. That's a big project. I've handled bigger. Yeah, you have. She turned to him. You in? For what? For this. Whatever comes next, the program, the fight, all of it. Ethan didn't hesitate. Yeah, I'm in. She smiled, real, unguarded. And for the first time since he'd met her, she looked at peace. Tma. 3 years later, the Taurus Veterans Medical Transition Program graduated its first class. 18 veterans. Combat medics, field surgeons, emergency responders, all now certified for civilian medical practice. The ceremony was small, held in the Black Ridge Auditorium. Families present. Media invited but kept at a distance. Colonel Reeves gave the keynote, talked about service, about second chances, about the importance of recognizing skill regardless of where it was earned. Then Maya spoke. She stood at the podium, looking out at the graduates, and saw herself in every single one of them. When I left the service, she said, I thought I was leaving the war behind. But war doesn't work like that. It stays with you, in your reflexes, in your nightmares, in the way you see the world. She paused. For a long time, I thought that made me broken, unsuited for civilian life, too damaged to help anyone. She looked at Ethan, sitting in the front row. But I was wrong. The skills we learned in combat, the decisiveness, the resilience, the ability to function under pressure, those aren't weaknesses, they're strengths. And civilian medicine needs them. She turned back to the graduates. You're not broken. You're experienced. You're not damaged. You're tested. And you have something to offer that no textbook can teach. The knowledge of what it means to keep someone alive when everything's falling apart. Her voice strengthened. This program exists because I got tired of fighting alone. Because I realized that my story isn't unique. There are thousands of veterans like us, trying to transition, getting blocked by bureaucracy and bias, and systems that don't recognize what we bring to the table. She held up a folder. These are your credentials, your certifications, your proof that you belong here. But the real proof isn't on paper. It's in the lives you'll save, the patients you'll help, the difference you'll make. She set down the folder. Welcome to the fight, and this time you're not fighting alone. The room erupted in applause. The graduates stood, their families stood, the staff and faculty stood. And Maya stood there, watching them, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in what she'd survived, not in the battles she'd won, but in what she'd built. After the ceremony, Ethan found her outside, leaning against the wall, her eyes closed. "You okay?" She opened her eyes, smiled. "Yeah, just taking it in. You should be proud. That was incredible." "It was necessary. There's a difference." "Can it be both?" She thought about it. "Maybe." They stood together, watching the graduates file out, laughing, hugging their families, planning their futures. "You know what the best part is?" Maya said. "What? They won't have to fight the way I did. The doors are already open. The protocols are already changed. They just get to walk through and do the work." "That's because of you." "That's because of all of us. You, Helen, Reeves, Morrison, everyone who refused to let Brennan win." Ethan smiled. "Team effort." "Yeah, team effort." A young woman approached. One of the graduates. Hispanic, mid-20s, bright-eyed. "Director Torres, I just wanted to say thank you for everything." Maya straightened. "You earned this, not me. Maybe, but you built the bridge." The young woman hugged her, quick and fierce, then walked away. Maya watched her go, her throat tight. "You good?" Ethan asked. "Yeah. She turned to him. "I spent 4 years in war zones learning how to save lives, then 3 years in this hospital fighting for the right to use those skills. And now I get to spend the rest of my career making sure nobody else has to fight that hard." Sounds like a purpose. Sounds like peace. They walked back inside together, into the building where it had all started, where Maya Torres had arrived as a quiet, overlooked nurse with a past she wanted to bury, and where she'd become something else entirely. Not a hero. She'd never wanted that, but a leader, a mentor, a voice for those who'd been silenced. And as the doors closed behind them, the sound of voices and laughter echoing through the halls, Maya realized something. She'd stopped running. She'd stopped hiding. She'd stopped apologizing for being exactly who she was. And that, more than any medal, any title, any recognition, was the real victory. The war was over, and she'd won, not by defeating her enemies, but by building something they could never destroy. A future where skill mattered more than credentials, where experience mattered more than protocol, where the people who had been dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated finally had a seat at the table. And as Maya Torres walked back into Blackridge Medical Center, head high, shoulders back, surrounded by the people who'd fought beside her, she knew she was exactly where she belonged. Not in the shadows, not in the background, but standing in the light, fierce and unbreakable, proving that the quietest voices can change everything, if you just give them the chance to speak. The end.